Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Is my mic on? Yes, now it is.
mic's
Okay,
on.
awesome. Hi.
Hi.
Thanks for being here. I know you're not feeling totally tip-top shape, so thanks for making this happen. And
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I apologize in advance. I'm overcoming a cold. You can probably hear that.
so let's just start by telling us a little bit about founding Kabam Games and what was that like, and what was that like as a woman?
Sure. So I don't know if a lot of people know this, but we were founded in 2006. This was over 10 years ago, quite a long time ago. Accelerators, incubators just weren't around. And I was one woman of a four-person founding team. In 2006, it was a very interesting time because YouTube had just exited to Google for over $1 billion. And there's nothing like a great exit to inspire the next generation of entrepreneurs.
Nice.
So I think we were sitting there, a couple of me and my friends, because we all met in various points of our lives, and we were thinking, well, maybe we can do something like this too. And we said, at the same time, there was this thing called Facebook that was slowly coming to being, and we're like, wow, Facebook, it's really brilliant, but the problem is they just go after college students, which have no money. Why don't we go after people who have money, like professionals? So we decided to try to raise money on corporate social networking. Yeah, I know that's kind of boring. I think everybody just fell asleep. But the whole idea of raising money on that was the idea that these people had some money. We were already professionals. We were a couple years in working. And so we went and raised money. I will say this, our CEO used to be a VC associate, and we raised money from that firm. I do fundamentally believe that relationships are still incredibly important, even though there's so many great things that are democratizing this, but relationships are important. Even being on the investing side, when I think about giving money to somebody, I want to get to know them a little bit first. And so they gave us money. I don't know what they were thinking, but they gave us money before we even had product. And then the clock just started ticking. 7 months later, we had about 3 iterations of our product and only 1,400 users. And you don't have to be good at math to know that that's not good at all.
Not good for
And this was after our great marketing launch of emailing our friends and family saying, please, please, please use our product. And the only people that would use it is my mom, as well as these lawyers who told us to cease and desist. So we pretty much sat around the room and said, we could return the money and just go find jobs. At the same time, Facebook launched their developer platform, and that's when we started dipping our toes into Facebook and eventually into games. But before then, we decided, that's where the users are. So we'd go to where the users are, and we didn't beholden ourselves to corporate social networking. Instead, we said, what made the most sense? What can we provide value in an ecosystem? We ended up building the largest fan communities for TV shows and sports teams on Facebook, that when ABC wanted to distribute video on Facebook, they didn't call it Facebook, they called us up. And that's mainly because at that time, Facebook just didn't have a lot of capability of video. I mean, now they're doing a huge push. And then 2008 happened for us, and that was very much where all the ad-supported businesses just kind of tumbled over. Don't worry, I'm going to get to the game part soon.
Right. No,
it all toppled over in 2008, all the ads, and we saw $3 million of ad revenue just gone within a week. It was actually a really scary time, and if you talk to people who were trying to raise money during that time, it was really, really scary. So again, we sat there and we said, well, we could return the money, or we can see, there's basically 3 things at almost every pivot that we've done is we looked at the marketplace, where are the users, what do they like, what is our core competency? So at this point, we had over 100 years of Facebook app building experience. We knew how to build apps on Facebook. And then we look at a bit of our passion points. And our CEO at the time loved games. I mean, that was a way we would decompress. And even when we were doing the fan communities, he said, I'd love to do something in games. So at that time, Zynga was killing it. Games were just kind of a recession-proof thing. And we said, you know what? Excuse me. We said, why don't we try our hand in this? Why don't we try it? So that's really when we started our gaming, our games. We built Kingdoms of Camelot on Facebook in 2009, and that became basically our flagship product. That product has grossed over $250 million on just that alone. So on top of that, we were able to usher in a whole new business model in terms of when it comes to games. At that time, It was really, if you play Xbox, you just kind of buy the cartridge and you put it into, it's like a movie, excuse me. Sorry. It's like a movie where if you buy it and you open it up, you have to use it. You can't return it.
Right.
But here, you
It's
can
not
play.
instant. It's,
That's
yeah.
right. Sorry. Our games are free to play. So basically, it's free to try it out. But if you wanted to, progress, you could spend some time on it, or you want to buy gifts for somebody. That's where we make our money. So it's really starting thinking about games as a service.
Awesome. And so that was 2010?
That was around 2009, 2010.
Okay.
And then very quickly, we moved on to mobile because Facebook had launched Facebook credits. And that we found out really quickly would negatively impact our business. They had said they wouldn't put a tax for developers, and then they started taxing, and we knew immediately. And that was really kind of a blessing in disguise because our games weren't that viral. So we were, sorry, buying players in terms of like showing ads to people. Because my mom wouldn't play this game no matter how much she loved me. She just wouldn't play this game, so.
So flash to February of 2017, you went from, how many pivots did you go through?
So we went through 3 major pivots, a couple of little ones along the way, but 3 major ones, and then we ended up on mobile in 2012. I think very quickly we realized Facebook, we needed to expand past Facebook. And in 2012, we won the top grossing app on Facebook. Our first thing was to take our Kingdoms of Camelot game and put it onto mobile phone and make it very mobile first, which was something that people didn't quite know about back then. And so we were one of the first in-app purchase games. Before it was all premium games, and this was the first in-app purchase game that basically grossed the most amount of money, and that today that's just the gold standard if you want to do a game.
Yeah, yeah. So between 2012 and 2017, I'm going to talk and let you breathe for a minute. You went from just starting on mobile to starting to partner or starting to build these games with Marvel and some of the other big names, and that led to what happened in February 2017.
That's right. So she keeps referencing February 2017. We exited our company to Netmarble and Fox Next for almost $1 billion. So that's really where we were. We had raised a lot of money. We're getting to our Series D and our Series E. The markets, it made the most sense in terms of how the markets were looking for mobile games as well. Mainly the main reason is, and this is what kind of spurred on a lot of the partnerships, is acquiring a user or acquiring a customer got more and more expensive. So then we would partner with brands like Marvel. So our largest game right now is Marvel Contest of Champions. And we started partnering with Fast and Furious, Star Wars, Transformers, and soon to be Avatar. We partnered with all of them because when we could access and get to a fan, and now the fan can access the brand 24/7 in their pocket. That's kind of the whole beauty and kind of the privilege of being almost in the mobile gaming industry, is that reality is, you're with the player like almost in their most intimate parts of their lives, which is kind of strange,
Yeah.
but kind of interesting as well. I know a lot of people look at games as something very silly, but we've had a ton of emails. We've had several marriages that has happened in our games. We've happened, not inside of our games, but as a result of meeting in our games. We've even had ones that, actually it was a very sad story, but a father and son would play Marvel together, and the father had terminal cancer, and he basically said, look, I'm going to be dying soon, and my son, this is how we interact. Could you, on his birthday in December, send him this note from me in the game? And
Wow.
of course, like the game team were like, of course, we'll do it. But that's just kind of like, you don't really realize it, but you're in the most intimate parts, and sometimes when you are playing these games, sometimes, it's like being with your loved ones but not having to say anything.
Yeah.
But still doing a lot. So I know that games are, everyone's like, oh, that's so silly, but there's so many things around games, and it's very serious in many ways. There's a lot of money, there's a lot of impact to it, and it's not, in some ways, not just entertainment, even though it falls into the entertainment space.
And I believe that with that with that kind of ability to go into people's daily lives, it also comes a responsibility in terms of representation, in terms of really diversity in the characters, and just the ability to really see yourself and
That's right.
So what have you done as a company to really help create change around diversity and inclusion in your company, and how does that relate to the games?
Sure. So I think for us, for sure, the gaming industry, and I always have a big push about, I do think the gaming industry and the game makers can be a lot more diverse. I mean, a lot of my friends, most of the time, they tend to be women. They always, once they find out they're in the video game industry, they always say, oh, Holly, I'm so sorry, I don't like video games. And I always tell them, well, I don't believe you don't like video games. There just hasn't been a video game made for you. So I'll caveat that with, hey, you know what, there is this big need to keep on moving. And I even saw it within our company. There still was so much more that we could have done in terms of pushing. And I think this happens with a lot of companies. You just start doing the same thing over and over. I think when we started pushing the mold, even like not in the mold, but started breaking out of the mold a little bit further, was with our Marvel game, our Marvel Contest of Champions, mainly because it was such a rich universe, and our partners were just so amazing that they would make sure that on the first characters that were released, there was at least one or two women. The executive, a lot of people don't know, but the executive producer on that is a woman. And then the most interesting thing is there was a comic book series, I believe in the 80s, called Contest of Champions, and they brought it back using our art in our game. And they said, hey, Kabam, we'd really like you guys to make a new character for this universe. And that never, ever happens. It's usually the IP goes first with the movie, then it possibly goes to TV, then it goes to toys, and even a cereal box toy. And if you're really lucky, it might go to a game, right? Like you're just kind of at the runt at the end of it. But this time they actually went to the game maker and they said, can you help us make some IP? And so they basically, that studio came up with this character called Guillotine, which is basically avenging, it's a sword that talks to her and she's trying to avenge her father's death. But that is, I look at that Marvel universe and I think it's quite accessible already. And then on top of that, our team being able to push that, I was like, oh wow, and it was a woman. I don't even think they were too intentional about it in some ways, because I brought it up to the studio's president. He's like, yeah, you're right. And I think that it was just kind of giving that push and that ability to be able to start breaking the mold a bit and not doing everything exactly the same as we did in Kingdoms of Camelot and then The Hobbit and then all of that.
Yeah. And it's cool to be partnering with a company that's also working on diversity and inclusion and really in representation.
That's right.
For entrepreneurs in the audience, that was an 11-year time
That's
span.
right. Condensing it.
Yeah, condensed into 5 minutes. What would you, looking back on how you did everything, what would you suggest to entrepreneurs looking for, they're looking at you as a unicorn company founder.
Yeah.
What would you suggest to them just starting out?
So I definitely think, choose your co-founders wisely. I think it's a long, long road. I think solar founders can make it, but I don't know what I would have done without a team. And I know my other teammates would say that about us. So I definitely think you're basically going to be married to them in terms of choosing co-founders. Don't be scared to keep on trying it, right? It's very interesting because people always say you have to get comfortable with failing, and there's going to be a lot of failure along the way. And the hardest thing is you have a certain runway, either a certain amount of money or some type of, usually it's a certain amount of money, and then it just runs out. So you better find that thing that makes it change before that. And people say don't be scared of failing. I'm much more of a fan that's of like, hey, don't be scared of trying, because the more you try, the more you're going to learn. And one thing for clearly, I totally believe, is your starting point does not determine your end point, right? It's so much more important. Yeah, because if you looked at all of us, we were 4 of us, we'd never been in managerial work. We had no idea how to run an organization. We knew product, and that was about it. But very quickly, once you get some product traction, you have to start thinking about managers. And you're like, oh my gosh, what's this manager stuff? What's this diversity inclusion, to be honest? Because when you think about it, at the beginning, you end up probably hiring people that are similar. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'll be straight up. We hired like friends and cousins of one another, right? Because it was just easier. They were cheaper. All of that, and then you tap out of your internal networks pretty quickly. And internal networks, sadly, do not help on diversity. So you have to be kind of intentional in going that extra mile, because everybody's internal networks taps out, and they say it's the best. And I don't know, you have to really sit down and define what is the best. And definitely as you get larger, you want to go farther. It's not necessarily, speed isn't your thing now. It could be like, how far can you go, and how far and how wide can you go in terms of that. So certainly for people starting out, definitely choose your co-founders wisely. Make sure your values are the same. And if you value diversity, which I think you should, make sure that's baked in the beginning. And being able, if you have a diverse co-founding team, you'll end up attracting a diverse workforce. I mean, I was telling Melinda, I said, you know what, our breakdown between male and female, so all my co-founders are Chinese American. So that's kind of a whole other ball of wax we can certainly discuss. But I was the only woman there, and there's pros and cons to that. But just reality was about 25% of our workforce were women. And I think it's because like likes like. And you do have to think about some of these things from the beginning if you can. And that's actually a better rate than most gaming companies, but it's still not good enough. I mean, we need more diversity in game making, that's for sure.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
Okay, no kidding. We're just about out of time. Is there, what was your hope? So our theme for the conference is driving an inclusive future.
Sure.
What does an inclusive future for gaming look like? What is that?
Oh, I'm such a big fan. If I can get more female game makers going, I will be pretty blunt though. It's not the best environment to like make the gaming world has kind of consolidated a lot. This is exactly why we've exited. But for an inclusive future, I think you need more inclusive game makers out there. There's a real inspiring story by the Nyx Hydra founders. They created this almost like a Tamagotchi game called Egg. And they basically said, we didn't know how to code. We said, we want to see games that we like. And that game ended up getting like 20 million downloads. And they taught themselves how to code. And it was just such an inspiring story, because I'm like, yeah, like we should be making games that we want to see, kind of thing. I will be honest, though, it's a very tough environment out there. 630 apps are submitted to the App Store daily, and 66% of them are games. So, but if you want an inclusive future, I do believe that we can get more game makers out there, because there's probably a whole swath of people. I mean, I'm always surprised how much the casual game makers are always men, but it's the women that play them. And I'm like, oh, maybe it could be more fun if women were making them. I'm a huge fan of casual. So, yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.